Hi, thanks for joining this session. I'm going to be talking about fantastic feedback forms and importantly how you create them and how you use Power Query to get your data from those feedback forms into a nice organized structure. Okay, just a quick bit about me. My name's Wyn Hopkins. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've been one since 2017. I've written a book, Power BI, for the Excel Analyst, and I've got a website, pbi.guide. You can check that out. YouTube. I'm on YouTube a lot. I've got lots of videos, lots of content, Power Query, Excel, Power BI, all these sorts of things. And for a day job, I'm a director and a consultant and trainer at Access Analytic in Perth, Western Australia. Okay. So let's get into the actual session then. So what I want to do is create a little feedback form like this, that you can send out to people so they can fill it in, say what do you use, tick a few boxes, how good is Excel, give a few ranks, drag a few of these things around, what do you think the most important order is, and then submit it, okay, and then analyze the results. Okay, so where you'd start off, or where I'd recommend you start off to create this form in the first place, is you go to SharePoint, or even in Teams in the Files section. Okay, you can go into, that's essentially SharePoint as well. You can do this in OneDrive, but you're then sort of locking your feedback form into your own personal SharePoint folder. So if you can use SharePoint, then I would go with that. Okay? So just create a new empty Excel file. This is the best way to do it, rather than creating a form, because you're not sure where the form ends up. So it's best to start with an Excel file and give this a name at the top here. I'll call it Excel WKD 8. Okay, Excel WKD 8. Press enter and it's now saved. Okay, from there, insert forms. Okay, nice and straightforward, new form. Just really make sure you name your Excel workbook first before you do this. It's everything just works nicer with the name created at the start. So here's my form. I can edit this. I can add an image. And then you can start adding new questions. Okay, so I'm going to add a multiple choice. Call it, which do you use? And you give people options. Power BI, and you can allow multiple answers. Okay, great. Make it required if you want, or don't. Okay, then I'm going to add another new one, and this one is going to be a rating. Rate, and then I'll add a new one, doing this drop down using a ranking. Okay, and I'll say rank these. Okay. So there we go. All good. All right. And we can now, you can add a theme. You can add whatever theme you want. Let's go for this perhaps. There we go. And then you can collect responses. This box, anyone can respond, or only people in your organization or specific people. I'm going to go for anyone. You can even shorten the URL. Okay, so it's a bit of a short one. And you can even do a QR code if you wanted to. Okay, there we go. And people could scan that. So you've got all these options, which is great. Okay. So let me just do this. I'll go for the preview option. Well, let me actually copy this link. Let's try this out. I'll copy this link and I'll put it into a browser session. Okay, here we go. Excellent. And we'll say 3. I do Power Query. I've never used any of the other ones. I think index match and then VLOOKUP. Not really heard of XLOOKUP, and submit a response. And then somebody else comes in and says, actually, I've used Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power BI. Gets a 3 for Excel and VLOOKUP. I prefer XLOOKUP over index match, submit. And then the last one, submit another response. Let's go all 3. Okay, we'll give it a 5-star rating, an XLOOKUP at the top, then index match, then VLOOKUP, submit. You just start building up these little, responses. Okay, so where have they gone? Okay, well, if I go back to this demo, the actual results are coming through here. Okay, so if I come back into my Excel WKD8, so that was my preview file that I showed up here. Here's my results. Okay, and if I go back into, I close this little window down, I can close that little window down. If I go back into my SharePoint file, here's my Excel file that I'm using. This was a demo one I used for testing this out before doing the presentation. All right, so here's the one we've just created. I want to connect to that with Power Query, suck the data in and tidy it up, okay, to do my reporting. And the crazy thing is that you have to do this. This is how you connect to this SharePoint file. You click on that little icon, scroll down the side here, and if this doesn't show up, make sure you click on the little I. Click on this, copy path. This is the link you need for Power Query, right? It's crazy, but this is what you need. So click that. Then I'm going to go into Excel, okay? I'm going to say data from web, okay? So I'm going to connect to that Excel workbook sitting in SharePoint. And then other people can refresh this as well if I do it this way and give people permission to that file as well. So there's the URL. Click OK. The first time you do this, you'll be prompted to sign in. Okay, pick organizational account. So when the option comes up, make sure, I've already signed in once, so I don't have to sign in again. But when you sign in, make sure you pick organizational account and sign in. Okay. And now I'm going to go to table 1 and right click and say transform data. And it's opened up on another screen, so I'll just pull that across. Okay, I found a little strange thing recently that when I was trying this, this only shows up. Let me just refresh the preview again. There we go. It only shows the first record to start with. So what I'm going to do is just select these few columns and get rid of a few of the others. So I just want the ID, the completion date. The email is anonymous because I just said anybody can fill this in, so I don't need that. I want the which do you use. So I'm holding control when I'm clicking each of these. How do you rate Excel and rank these? Okay, so I've control click those, right click, remove other columns. Awesome. Control Shift plus just to zoom in a little bit. So here we go, and this is, I'm just going to call this my source Excel feedback file. Great. Okay, so that's all nicely ready for me to do some analysis. Now, the challenge is when you do multiple choice on a form, the data comes in like this. Okay, or if you do rankings, the data comes in like this. So that's not great for doing analysis. I need to tidy these up. And there's a number of ways you can approach this. It depends on your reporting needs. But here's some suggestions, okay, about how to fix this up. I'm actually going to change this to a date because I don't really need the time. You can, if you want to analyze the time, all good. You can even duplicate the column and have one as a date and one as a time to do different analysis if that's important to you. Right, so that's going to be my starting point. I could carry on building the sort of options here, but it can be a good idea to just right click and reference that to start building your transformations and call this my feedback results. This is going to be my output. Not totally necessary, but can be a nice little way of sort of breaking these things into separate elements. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want to break these down, and there's a number of ways of doing this. So I'm going to highlight these two columns to start with, right click and unpivot the other columns, which means flip them around. So I'm going to unpivot the other ones. So now I've got sort of my questions in a single column. Okay, so I'm going to rename these as questions. And then I've got the results. So I'm going to call that results. Great. Okay, so we're getting somewhere that we've got at least the questions in a column, so I can slice and dice my report by those. So one of the things I want to do is actually grab this Excel value. How do you rate Excel? But I also need to split all these things apart. So which bit should I do first? Well, let's grab the value out, I think. So I want to say, look, if this column contains the word how do you rate Excel, then grab this value and put it in another column. Okay. So here we go. We're going to right click and I'm just going to copy that bit of text. Then I'm going to say add column, conditional column. So this is going to be like an if statement in Power Query. So if the question column, let me move this down a bit, equals, and then I'll paste how do you rate Excel, which I got from here. Okay, then grab me the value from the results column. Otherwise, so else box, empty. I don't want anything. So click OK, check this out. Okay, oh, actually, before I do, let's change this name here to rating, because that'll be the name of the new column. Click OK. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got a nice column now that I can like sum up or average, but I'd like to know the rating that people who said they like Power Query or people who use index match prefer. So here's person number 1, right? So there's 3 rows for person 1, that or response 1 and response 2. Okay, so I can't really use the fill up. That's what I would normally do. Check it out. Right click, fill down, let's say, because this 3 rating, great, it's filled down against there for that person, but look, the 3's copied down to that person here as well, into the 2, so I can't use the fill up, fill down method. So you have to start having a think about what method you could use to populate these. Now, one option, okay, is to use the group by. Let me show you. Okay, so if I want to group by person. Okay, so right click, group by. So I've put this in, and that's the ID. I actually want to bring back all the records. You can call this data, but here is the important thing: all rows. And then under advanced, I want to add an aggregation that is the, let's call it the final rating, where I take the max of the rating. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, bear with me on this. Click OK. So now what we've got is in this little table, it's all grouped by person 1. See, there's person 1, there's all their records. Next table, person 2 and all their records. And we've got this final rating column. So all I need is, well, I don't really need the ID column anymore, so I can remove that. And I can expand out ID, completion time, and I don't need rating anymore. And don't need use original column name as prefix, and click OK. So over here, I've got the final rating, which is great. So then I don't need how do you rate Excel. So I can click on the drop down, get rid of this. Okay. And I can rename this, you know, just simply rating now, because, you know, I had to name it something different to the original rating column. But you could have left it as final rating, that's fine. That's awesome, right? So then what I want to do, I want to get these things separated by semicolons into different rows so I can slice and dice by those elements. So right click, split column, by delimiter. Okay. And then the delimiter I'm going to use is a semicolon. And the important thing, I wish this wasn't hidden under advanced. I don't think it should be. It's not an advanced feature. It's split into rows. So rather than splitting it across the screen, as you're used to, maybe text to columns, split it into rows. Beautiful. Okay, so now for person 1, we've got sort of 6 entries. And for person 2, we've got another 6 or 7 entries. And over here is the rating as well. So I can now see somebody who said they used Power Query has given Excel a rating of 3. Okay. I'm then going to remove the blanks. So click on this. You could untick blanks, or if you want to remove blanks and nulls, which weirdly are subtly different, go remove empty. And we're getting there. Okay. And then the rank these. This is the last step that I want to sort of apply here. The rank these is an interesting one. Because, oh look, I didn't even notice my typo. That's in my feedback. So maybe I need to, I've done that now. I've stuffed that up and I've noticed it. So let's change it. So right click, replace values. If you ever see V look up, but E up, is that the one I used? Yes. No, UIP. Okay, so my spelling has gone terrible. If you ever see V look UIP, replace it with V lookup. Okay. Unintentional mistake, but I'll leave it in the video because it's a useful lesson about using find and replace. Okay, so there we go. Right, I want to add a rating to, keep the order. This was number 1, this was number 2, this was number 3 for that person. This was number, over here, the rank these, again, this was number 1, 2, and 3 for that person. So group by comes in really handy again because I can group by ID. So I want to group by ID and by the question. So those two things, group by. So we've added ID and question. We'll pull in some data, call all rows. I want to keep all the records. I'm not actually going to add any aggregation. So here, rank these for person 1. Because we grouped by ID and question, we've now got these 2 columns. So we've got this subset, okay, and we've got this subset and this subset. So for this rank these ones, I want to say, right, do number them 1, 2, 3. Okay, index match, VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP. The bottom person here, put XLOOKUP first. So I want to rate those 1, 2, 3. So how do I do that? Well, you can start by getting the code you need. It's always useful just to use some buttons to get the code you need and then be a bit fancy with it afterwards. So I'm going to just simply add an index column from 1. And all that does is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not actually what I want. I want the 1, 2, 3, etc. to run inside this little table. And I actually want it to give me a column called rank. Okay. So that's the code I need. So I'm going to copy that code. Control C. And I'm actually going to delete this step. Okay. That was just to help me get the code. What I am going to do is go to the Add Column tab and click on Custom Column. This allows me to write a little formula. Okay, and we can call it whatever we want. We can just leave it as that. I'm pasting that code in. Let me just try and zoom in here. Oh, I can't with this screen at the moment. So what we're going to do is it's referring to grouped rows 1, which is the step back up in the table here, the previous step. Actually, I want to refer to this little data column. So it's nice and easy. You just replace this little reference with data. That'll then run the index against every one of these little tables individually, which is beautiful, perfect, okay? And call the column rank. So give it a go, click OK. So you get this new column, But if I click by the table, look, there's a rank. Okay, there's a ranking. There's a ranking. Awesome. Go to the bottom one, XLOOKUP, index match VLOOKUP. There's your ranking. Perfect. Okay, and all the data I need is inside here. So I can say right click, remove other columns, and just expand this out. And then I've got my rank. But I don't really need a rank for which of these do you use, Power Query, or which do you use. I don't need the rank for those ones, so I want to make these null. I could add another conditional column and say, hey, if this column contains the words which do you use, then null. Otherwise, grab me the column from rank. Would work perfectly well, but just for a training purpose and just to be a bit sort of fancier and neater about this, what you can do is back at this added custom step, okay, where we say, okay, each table, so we go for each record. I just want to say each. If, okay, the question, so square bracket question equals rank these, then, okay, so if you're doing the rank, then do that, else, oh, I've got to do it inside the bracket, okay, else, I just want the actual data, okay, I don't want the custom column, I just want the original data without the actual ranking. Data, close the bracket, press enter. Okay, so I've got an error. Now, I could edit this out with a video that I'm showing you, but we all make errors. How do I work out what the error is? Well, my first recommendation would be click to the right of the word error, and it often gives you a bit of a helper. It says the field question of the record wasn't found. And I'm looking across here, the column's called questions, and I've written question. So that's the problem, okay? So here we go, put the letter S in, enter. Beautiful, okay? So now where it's which do you use, there is no rank column. But when there is rank these, there is the column. And now I click on the very bottom step again, and I can see here is the rank with the nulls, which is perfect. Okay, that is awesome. Right, I'm ready to load this. So I go close and load to, okay, but in sort of demo land, I'd already loaded this. So I'm just going to go close and load and show you that this is going to be loaded to a table. But what would normally happen is you say close and load to, and a little box will pop up. Okay, let me drag this over here so you can see it. So you right click and you can say load to, and this box pops up. You can load it to a table, or you can load it to a data model, which we'll talk about in a second. Right. But this is loaded, okay, and it's refreshable, okay, with nice structured data. And when more results come in, it'll update. So check this out. If we go back into the Excel form, or we click on the link, if somebody sent us the link for the feedback form. But I'm just going to go back in here and show you. So if I go to insert forms, you can now preview it, edit it if you need to make a change, maybe fix up my spelling mistake for VLOOKUPs. I might go and do that now. Let's go in here, edit form. Okay, so you can go in and you can say, right, this shouldn't be with an I. Okay, thank you very much. And then I'll preview this. Let's just fill another one in. So we'll say, right, which do you use? All of them. How do you rate Excel? 1. Oh, why do you use them all then? And then I'll put index match, then XLOOKUP, then VLOOKUP. Okay, submit. So after a few seconds, that submission should flow through into this report. If I click refresh, okay. Now it's only saying record 5 because I paused the recording and just tested this out, just to make sure it worked. And yeah, record 4 was in there, so I just deleted that. So I deleted record 4. Okay, so there's record 5, and we should be good. So if I go back into my Excel file and right click and say refresh, there we go, record 5 with index match, XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. If you're going to do some analysis on this though, I'd probably recommend you load this to the data model to do slicing and dicing of these things. So if I right click on this panel and say load to, so rather than loading it to a table, I'm going to say don't load it to a table, load it to the data model. Okay, so only create connection means just don't load it to a table. Add to the data model, click OK, and say, hey, this table's about to disappear. That's fine. Now, if you don't have Power Pivot, what you need to do is go Data and click this green Manage Data Model button. It'll be bigger than that on your screen, but mine really zoomed in here so everybody can see. Once you click on that, this Power Pivot add-in will appear, where you can start writing calculations and other things as well. But in the meantime, before you've done that, you can go Insert, Pivot Table from Data Model, and click OK. So there's my pivot table. Here I can put in various things, results, ratings, but I want to write some little calculations, like number of responses, which I need to do a distinct count of ID. Okay, so it's not every row, because not every row is a unique submission, because we split the elements into rows. So I need to do a distinct count of the ID. I want to do an average ranking and an average rating for these things as well. So these all lend themselves to using DAX measures. You can avoid DAX measures to some extent, but don't. You're just making hard work for yourself in the future. Get used to writing little DAX formulas. So how do you write one? Well, the simplest way is to right click and say add measure. Now this box that pops up, okay, this is where you write your formula, and I'm control mouse wheeling in to make it bigger to read, okay? You give your formula a name, such as number of responses. So you're giving your measure or formula a name. Equals, okay, distinct count. Now this box, when I click on here or press tab, okay, the font resizes. I don't like that. Okay, and then if you press tab, this box down the bottom takes focus. So this box isn't as useful as the next box I'll show you. Okay, but distinct count of the feedback results ID, close the bracket, check your formula, number, whole number, 1000 separator. Okay, and there's your number of responses. Give a little tick, 4 responses so far. Beautiful. All right, I want to do average rating and average rank. This time I'm going to go to my Power Pivot, measures, new measure. Okay, so this box here is nicer. When I press tab, it doesn't disappear. The IntelliSense has color to it, which is great. So this one is average rating equals average. So you've got the nice color in here, feedback rating, double click on that. Perfect. I'll go number, or maybe the average could be 2.5 or something. I'll just go to 1 decimal. You know, there won't be 1000. You know. So we'll click OK. And there's my average rating, 3.0. And then again, Power Pivot, measures, new measure. Okay, and this is average rank. Average rank. And then I can do that by the result in the rows. So index match. There were 4 people who responded they use index match. Average rating was 3, average ranking was 1.8. All right, I hope you find that useful. Enjoy Excel weekend. Catch me on YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere else there is. Hope you enjoy the sessions. Thanks for watching.